Welcome to the Pitchin and Sippin podcast, where we talk PR trends and tips over sips and meet a wide range of incredible founders, PR pros, and members of the media. I'm Lexie Smith, a former workaholic VP of PR and marketing turned two-time entrepreneur, founder of the PR Bar Inc., business and PR coach, new mama, and self-proclaimed connoisseur of puns, pizza, and wine. I'm a huge believer that knowledge is power and kindness never goes out of style. Think of this show as a way to uplevel your business and career over happy hour. Now, let's get to pitchin' and sippin'. Welcome everyone to the Pitchin and Sippin podcast. Today we are joined by Maggie Gillette. Maggie is a multi-talented, multi-passionate entrepreneur, moderator, expert, and freelance writer covering the fashion, lifestyle, and home beats for both print and digital media. She's written for outlets such as Better Homes and Gardens, Influenced Magazine, Byrdie, Insider, and so much more. Maggie, welcome officially to the show. I always like to start out with, where is home base and what do you like to do outside of work for fun?
So home base is Chicago. I was in New York for about 10 years and I just moved back last spring. I grew up here, so I wanted to be closer to family outside of work. I spend a lot of time with my toddler. My husband and I are enjoying getting to know Chicago again, exploring the city, and I do a lot of reading outside of work.
Okay, so we were kind of chit-chatting everyone before we hit record, but my mom's from Chicago. I had my bachelorette party in Chicago, and I have family in Chicago. So I'm a big fan of Chicago, even though I'm in Southern California. What temperature is it as of February when we are recording this?
Thankfully, today it's a warm 26 degrees. It was 1 degree yesterday when I left to take my toddler to school. So 26 is a huge improvement.
26. I'm sure I've mentioned this on the show. I get a lot of crap. I'm from the Pacific Northwest originally, from Portland, Oregon, and I now live in Southern California, and I am now cold under 70 degrees, and everyone thinks I'm pathetic. I am pathetic. I'm owning it. I've acclimated, but 26 degrees is like Arctic sounding to me.
People laugh, but even moving from New York to Chicago, vastly different weather. New York is so much more temperate. It's so much warmer. Like, this is, even for me moving back here, it's been a little shock this winter. So okay, I understand.
Sure. Thank you for making me feel validated as a human being. So reading, what kind of books do you like to read?
Guilty pleasure books would definitely be like cozy mysteries at night.
Ooh,
that's what makes
a cozy mystery.
Like, everything is going to be fine.
Okay. So like Reese's, give me some, do you have any shout outs?
I don't know if I have any really good shout outs right now. I just finished a series that starts with a murder of magpies. And it's about someone who works in publishing in London. And of course, she always finds herself mysteriously involved in all these murders.
There you go.
But she's going to be just fine. She's a very lucky heroine, sort of, romance side plot situation.
Big into true crime, so I'm always looking for recommendations. So we're going to rewind time a little bit now. You mentioned you were in New York, but talk me through high level the steps of your career that came before today.
Sure. So I was actually in education for a while, but I always wanted to be in the fashion industry. I went to London College of Fashion for a summer and did an intensive program. And so I tried to launch a lingerie line in Chicago. It did not work out because there wasn't the infrastructure here. So I moved to New York City and launched a line there. Additionally, I launched a trade show because there needed to be like a sort of a small luxury trade show for lingerie. So I launched that with a couple of other designers. And then while I was doing that, I wanted to be more involved in fashion at large. So I interned for New York Fashion Week. And then I started covering New York Fashion Week as a freelance writer for a publication in the UK. And that's how I got my start with writing. And it just sort of went from there. With the pandemic, it wasn't a great time to be manufacturing in New York, and it wasn't a great time to have an in-person trade show. I was also pregnant at the same time. So that's when I really stepped back and decided, let's look at how I can be part of this industry in a way that's meaningful, but works for being a mom, works for the reality of the changing world. And so I really threw myself into writing and using my expertise to give tips, both on TV and in print as well. So I do kind of both sides of the PR in terms of I do expert advice for articles and television, and I use experts myself when I'm writing articles.
Okay. Wow, to so many points of that story. Let me clarify too. So this transition into the writing part of your career is semi-recent. Was it really prompted by the pandemic?
Well, I'd covered Fashion Week for about 6 years. So, but that was usually, a 2 times a year, really intensive couple of weeks. And then I expanded from there. I started dabbling a little bit more, but it really went from that being like my focus to broadening it to more general fashion and beauty and lifestyle as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Wow. Okay. So today, what are you doing? Talk us through, you kind of started, but tell us what you're doing today actively. And this is to set the scene, February 2023.
So I'm actively freelance writing. So, I'm juggling multiple articles with that. And then I'm also actively working as an expert. So like this week, I had an article that I wrote published in on the Better Homes and Gardens website, as well as my expert advice in Forbes about throwing a football Super Bowl party. And as well as coats, expert advice on choosing coats for the trends this season in InStyle. So, that's more than a typical week to have all of those going on at the same time, but that is sort of what I do, both sides of the coin on a pretty weekly basis, and then doing a podcast with you. And then I'm also working on an initiative to help boost the Chicago fashion scene. So because because I had to leave to start my line, and we're trying to work on it being a situation where like designers don't have to choose to leave their home in order to produce the line. So I'm working with a group called the Curio that I'm heading up with another person. And we are really just trying to get Chicago fashion a little bit more on the map and give more resources to local designers.
And you have a toddler?
A toddler and a dog and a husband.
Oh, the husband. I always forget that now. I'm like, oh, that too. Yes.
He's there too.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, you really do have this unique perspective where you can speak to the source side and the journalist side. And I want to dive into both sides a little bit. And I want to start on the source side before we go into the journalism side. Yeah. How are you going about securing or coming across opportunities to offer your expertise as a source?
So I'm part of a couple different groups online that put out requests. So I both receive and give requests through like Press for Success is one of them, run by Sabina Hitchin. So she's great. She's a great resource. I learned a lot about pitching from her. So she's definitely someone that you should be following on Instagram. Her handle is Sabina Knows. So she gives lots of great tips, and as well as like other Facebook groups and stuff that really helps. I know some people really like Haro. I feel like that's a little big. There's so many people responding to those, and there's so many coming out. It's a great resource. But for me personally, with everything else I'm doing, I've sort of moved away from targeting them just because it doesn't seem as time efficient for me personally, which doesn't mean they're, not a useful site. They definitely are. And I definitely have gotten placements through them. But I try to be a little more targeted just to be more efficient and get out there.
Not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot because Facebook groups are an avenue that now, since I've launched my agency and I'm back in the live pitching world rather than just coaching on the topic, I've been having to re-immerse myself in what are the latest groups. And I'm a part of, I'm going to butcher the SARZARS, and then there's another one which is CZARS, and then another one called PR Friendly Sharing Ops. Are there any other groups that you suggest as helpful?
I don't have another one. I'm also part of PR Friendly Sharing Ops, and I've gotten like a ton of really good info from them. I think that group is really great. So those have been and like I said, I know that Press for Success has a ton of opportunities. So those have been the main ones that I have really worked with.
Awesome. Okay. So once
Also, sorry.
oh, yeah. No, please.
On Twitter, if you look up journo requests, like hashtag, or press request hashtag, journo request, you tend to get a lot of stuff from the UK. I think just because of the vernacular, like that's, but journo request or press request, you can definitely find those on Twitter, and those hashtags can give you a lot of info as well.
Yes, great one. And actually, guys, we will throw you a bone and add some of these links to the show notes so you guys don't have to go searching down a rabbit hole, but really great resources. Now, once you have you've identified a source or an opportunity, do you have any quick or best tips on how to present yourself as an expert in that pitch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I sort of have like a little boilerplate now, because that also just helps for the efficiency, where it's like, hi, I'm Maggie. I'm a fashion and lifestyle writer and expert. Here's some places that I've been featured. Here's some places that I've written for. And that way I have sort of that with the links already in it saved, so that I can put that in and then, write the appropriate response before and after, targeting the exact request. Also, I mean, read the request. I know that sounds really obvious, but sometimes
Amen. Say it louder.
sometimes you put something out there and I'll say like, I know I'm going to get a bunch of requests for this because this is very popular. Don't send me a bunch of information at first. I will email you if it's, an appropriate topic. And sometimes people send me, and it's clear they've spent a lot of time working on sending me all this info. And it's like, that's not the angle for the article. So even if you're a great expert, you're either going to have to do it again, or I'm going to be like, oh, they didn't really listen to the request. So make sure you read the request, but let people know why you're the expert for this. You don't have to have, like, I work with people who have tons and tons of Instagram followers and have like a public persona for some of these. And I work with people who have small scale, design businesses, home stagers, who don't have like huge audiences, but if they give me great tips and great advice, like, I can use them for articles. It's not necessarily like having been quoted a million places. It's about like really knowing your stuff and being able to provide something that's valuable for the audience that I'm writing for. So I guess that goes a little more to the writer side too. But yeah, I mean, making sure that you are answering the questions that are asked, and making sure you let someone know that your credentials and why they should pick you as someone to be a source for an article.
I know it sounds so simple, guys, but this is something I've stood on a soapbox on and preached on everywhere I can. Read the directions, read the requirements, and don't go beyond that. If you aren't a fit, don't force it, right? Don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. Couldn't agree more.
I'll tell you what, and I've had experts who I may have like sent a quick DM to someone who I just know a little bit and said like, hey, do you want to comment on such and such story? And I've had good experts say like, that's really not something I know a lot about. I'm going to pass on this opportunity, but please keep me in mind. I had someone who a friend referred me to, and when I reached out, she said, oh, that was really sweet of her, but I don't. But here are 5 things I can talk about. So now that I know, the next time I need someone for one of these 5 things, because I write regularly for, the same outlets, I can come back to that person. And I definitely have, where it's like, I did one this week where it wasn't a fit for the last time I reached out to them, but they sent me their, details, and I had one of the exact topics that they told me they can speak on was an article I was assigned, and I reached right back out to them and they gave me amazing answers. So don't be afraid if it really, like you were saying, if it's really not a fit, don't force yourself into it. Build a relationship for a long term so that, maybe this is someone you're going to work with multiple times. One of the journalists both of the journalists who quoted me this week, I've already worked with multiple times. So they know that I can give the answers that they need. They know that I'm going to respond in a timely manner. So they're willing to work with you more than once. So instead of forcing it and possibly burning a bridge, like, nurture the relationship so it's something that's ongoing and productive for both of you.
Did you know that I send out a community newsletter roundup every Tuesday, chock full of resources, free media kit downloads, event invites, journalist contacts, visibility opportunities. Basically, if you're not on the list, hit pause and sign up. It's super simple. Go to theprbarinc.com/newsworthy. That link is in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. Such great advice and a really great strategy too, to kind of give them some very specifics on what you can speak to. So to your point, if there's another article, another opportunity down the line that comes up, you're top of mind. So you brought up the writing side, which is perfect because now I kind of want to tap over. So I can only imagine you probably are inundated. Your email language, your inbox is probably overflowing certain days with lots of pitches and requests. Any tips on how to stand out just in the inbox? So even starting at the subject line level.
I think part of it, make sure you say, if it's something like design expert, make sure you say that, because when I go back to search, like if I've filled all my things for this week, I kind of like mentally archive them. I don't delete the emails that get sent, because someone I might see, oh, that's a great person, but just not for this. And that again has happened multiple times where I keep them and then, or use some keywords like outdoor entertaining expert, like inside your email, if that's one of the things that you speak to. So, the same thing, I had someone who told me that they were a coziness expert, and it did not fit the first article that I was working on, but I actually then was assigned a story about the cozy aesthetic. So I went right back into my email. I was like, ping, I already have someone for this, typed in coziness, and she popped up. I emailed her and it ended up being a fit for the article. So make sure that if you have like specific keywords like outdoor entertaining, party planning, whatever it is that's your, sustainable fashion, if that's your area, make sure you have those keywords in there so that when someone goes back to search through their emails, they can actually find you.
Brilliant. Coziness expert. How can I be one of those when I grow up? But actually, that kind of brings me to a question. The qualifiers in your mind that make someone an expert. What are you looking for? And it doesn't need to be this person. We don't need to call them out. But in general, what things do qualify someone as a worthy or a credible source?
I mean, real life experience for me. I think that that's one of those things. If I can go to your website or your Instagram and see, oh, you do X, Y, and Z things on a daily basis. I can see this. You use, lighting in such a way. You've used mirrors. I've done multiple articles on mirrors. And for some of them, I was literally just looking through Instagram to see some designers that were doing anything cool so that I could reach out to them. So having like that social aspect or that website aspect to back it up. Because anyone can say they're an expert, but it really helps to be able to go and see, a link to your portfolio, things like that, so that I can easily see like, okay, this person's saying they're an expert, but I can click here and see, oh, wow, they really are a great designer. They've got some great things going on. Perfect. Oh yeah, look at this wonderful, these wonderful quotes they gave to another person. Okay, they can really give me some valuable information. Those are great tips on a different topic. I'm sure they'll give great tips on this one as well. So that sort of like social proof or written proof really helps. It's harder when you're starting out. I understand that. So that's why something like, seeing it on Instagram, that like, if you're telling me, you're an expert home stager, but there's nothing that you can show me, I can't really, that's going to be very hard for me to sell you as an expert, or even just to personally know that you're an expert. So having those sort of things that you can reference, even if it's just your Instagram account, even if it's just a blog that you wrote, so showing me something that tells me what you're talking about, so that you can actually help provide something valuable to the readers, because ultimately that's what you're looking to do as a writer.
Social proof, just like pulling that word out for everyone. So important in PR and journalism and sales and so many different categories across life and business. It's really, really great point. I'm curious too, so do you find it, I'm actually going to give you a really specific hypothetical, but not really hypothetical use case. So if a founder of a company is reaching out to provide expertise on a topic, this is something I see commonly. They really like, their goal, right, is to somehow get their company mentioned. I do find that there's a fine line between providing expertise and authentically getting that company roped in without being. I guess, do you have any kind of general advice or guidelines or ways you suggest people going about how to effectively give you advice, but still potentially get what they're after, which is a company mention?
Sure. I mean, first of all, when I quote someone, I always ask how they want to be quoted. So if I'm writing an article, it'll say so-and-so, the founder of such and such. So I usually get that like out of the way and link to their site if it's online. So that way they have that right up front. So it doesn't have to be so like drop your name a whole bunch of times. And a lot of times that does become, if it's too much, it can become tough because it's not an article necessarily about your company. If I'm writing an article about your company, then great. You can mention your company name 50 times because that's what the article is about. But if you're giving expert advice, show your expertise and we'll link to your website. You don't have to say, I always say what the person does. So you don't have to make it all about your site. And if it's organic, you can mention it a few times. And I've actually had people mention other people's businesses because I was doing a topic and they said, oh, this is a great place to get this. And that was just genuine advice. And I was able to call out this other small business, no problem, because it really worked in what we were talking about. But you don't want it to feel like you're just forcing your company's name over and over in the quotes.
Totally agree. I've dabbled in the journalism side myself, and I've used Haro to collect sources. And when it comes through and it's literally, they've kind of answered my question, but then there's a paragraph really about why their company's the best. It's like, you're just missing the mark there. So thank you.
And it's okay. And if it, like I said, like I had someone who was like, there are apps, including mine, that do X, Y, and Z things. And that was okay. It is a fine line to tread. So it is tough, but yeah, I mean, if it makes it's not an infomercial about, your company. So it is about building credibility as an expert versus simply getting your company name out there. So it's a tough line because we all want to get, you want to get press for your company. Of course, we understand that, but it's
another question. And then I want to kind of pivot. I guess my last question on this topic is, someone self-pitching themselves as an expert versus a publicist pitching one of their clients as an expert. Does it make a difference to you? No, I think that's good to hear. That's a question I get a lot.
I think as long as the pitch is professional, I'm just as happy to work with an individual as I am with a publicist. I get emails from both. And for me, it doesn't matter. And I'll even say, like, I kind of thought when I was first starting that maybe I would get more polished quotes from people who had PR and publicists behind them. And I'm not always finding that to be the case. I'm getting I got some amazing quotes from just an individual yesterday who's like a friend of a friend, but who's a real credible expert. And I've gotten people where I thought their PR person forwarded this to me. The PR person really should have said, hold up, let's look at these before we just forward them on to the writer, because
they should know
they're
better.
not sentences. And like, it's really hard to quote sentence fragments. It makes my job a lot harder if it, you kind of want to talk in those like sound bites so that you can say, oh, the best way to install picture lighting is X, Y, and Z, instead of just saying things like hook it to the wall.
Right.
That's, because then I have to build out all the wording around it. And sometimes it reads awkwardly if you don't have a little more polish to it. So yeah, no, it doesn't matter to me.
I think that's really helpful to hear. And I get different answers on the show when I ask that question. I think the general through line that I see is, as long as the person inside the inbox knows what they're doing and it's done in the correct way, then
yeah.
I
get amazing quotes from individuals. I get amazing quotes from PR people and publicists, and I get not great ones from both sides too. So as long as, like you said, it's a credible person, that's all that matters to me.
Awesome. Okay. So on that note, I want to go into a little bit of what I call preferential rapid fire. No right or wrong answers. I'm just going to ask you kind of short, what do you prefer? Again, on the receiving side of things. So I always want to be like the person at the racetrack with the flag. Are you ready? On your marks. Okay. Do you prefer a certain day of the week to be pitched?
No.
Nope. Okay. Certain time of day.
Nope.
How do you feel about follow-ups?
Follow-ups are fine, not more than one. If it,
Not
you know, yeah, because like you said, we get a ton of stuff in our inbox boxes. I'm saving it. If it was good, even if it wasn't appropriate for this article, I'm saving it. So if you follow up once, maybe because I was busy, but usually if you're a fit, I'll get back to you. If not, I'm saving you for another time.
And length in between that first outreach and that follow-up, couple days, a week. Do you have a preference there?
A couple days is fine. Less than 24 hours is pretty tough.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want people because I know you do a lot of product roundups, is it a requirement for them to have affiliate links set up?
I actually don't do a ton of product roundups. So,
Okay.
I know most people do prefer product link or affiliate links though. So, but that's not a big world.
Photos and assets? How important are they in a pitch?
It depends. It totally depends on the pitch. If it's, yeah, totally. If you're pitching a product, I need to see something. If you're pitching your expertise, not necessarily.
Okay. And so my last question is sliding into your social DMs, yes or no?
I'm fine with it.
You are fine with it. Which social channels are your preference?
Instagram. I've gotten people who slide in, and a lot of times I will actually pop up if I've got like a really short lead time article. I'll pop something up on my Instagram stories. I did it this week for 2 different things, and I got great feedback from like friends of friends that somebody forwarded onto. So I actually have no problem with that. I know not everyone likes it, but I use my Instagram more as a business Instagram. So
well, that's why these are preferential, no right or wrong. Because guys, like news alert, every journalist is a human being, meaning they're allowed to have their own likes and dislikes. So it's helpful to hear. So it is again, guys, February of 2023. I'm curious, Maggie, in the upcoming foreseeable quarters, are there anything you're actively working on that you want to hear from people on?
Sure. I'm actually doing more beauty and fashion pitches coming up, particularly beauty. So if you've got like a new product launch, if there's something I should know about, you can email me or DM me on Instagram. Actually, Instagram is also really great for that because then I can click right onto you and see what do you do. So for me, I like that because that's like really fast and easy, and I always have my phone on me. So
actually, that brings up one more preferential question. Mailers, if you're going to do something in the beauty space and it is product based, do you want to receive that product?
It depends. I also sometimes write about products that I already know because like I want to feel like I'm genuinely connected to it. So like I pitched a couple with like some of my personal favorites. So I don't need a mailer for them because like I pitched an article about like the blush that I'm wearing right now because it's my favorite. But mailers always check first because, some things, you never know if someone uses a product or if they're interested in it. So definitely check before you send anyone a mailer. And I know that you had Allie Wolansky on, who's also big on the please don't send me something without checking first.
A lot of people are, and those not in the world of media are maybe surprised by that people don't just want free stuff. But can you only imagine, guys, sitting on the other end, how much that can pile up?
Well, and not just that, like having run a small business, like if I know something is not a fit for me, I don't want a small business to spend money sending me something that I'm not going to use, or I'm definitely not going to cover in a story. Like it's not, I don't want them to waste that, like, especially the small businesses. It's not as, critical if it's like Revlon, but like, if you're a small business, save your money. I'd rather have you use it for someone who's definitely going to write about you than, sending it to me and having me say, oh, this is just going to sit on my bathroom counter. It's pretty, but I don't use X, Y, and Z. So
well, you're an amazing person. And for every small business out there, I think I say a big thank you for everyone, because that is hard. Inventory is hard, and shipping these days, shipping is so expensive. Wild. Okay. So guys, I'm really excited now that this is a video podcast that I get to bring in this mug when I ask this question. So first, if you are listening to this on a podcast form without video, go to YouTube, because clearly seeing my mug is worth it. So we've talked pitching. Now I got to ask, what we can find you sipping. So what is your favorite beverage, alcoholic or non-alcoholic?
Well, I'm definitely sipping coffee right now since it's 10:30 in the morning. I have my mug just off screen. So yeah, I have a big coffee mug right now. That is my lifeblood. I cannot start my day without a big cup of coffee. So that's definitely my morning. And then, I like a glass of wine every now and again.
Okay, so do you have a specific coffee drink?
I drink coffee with just a little milk. I used to drink it black, but now that I have a toddler, I always have milk in the house. So I just coffee with a splash of milk. Pretty simple.
Okay, and then type of wine?
I like Chardonnay and I like Cabernet.
Perfect. Classics. Love them. Good choices. So last question before I let you get back to all the million of things that you do in the world. Where can people connect with you if they want to reach out, if they want to pitch you, if they want to say how awesome you were on the show? Where should they go?
They can reach me at my email, which is Mags, M-A-G-S, Gillette, Gillette @gmail.com, or at the Maggie Gillette on Instagram. Unfortunately, Maggie Gillette was already taken, so I had to add a the, which feels a little pretentious, but like there wasn't really another choice aside from adding like random numbers, and then I look like a spam account. So
it's Lexie Smith and the Lexie Smith, because Lexie Smith is a famous bread artist. And so everything I have, it has to have an it's or the. So I so feel you. I always feel like the Lexie Smith sounds so pretentious. But anyway.
Yeah, it was like, what's the other option? So
like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, comma, dot. Right. Yeah.
Right. And then everyone's gonna be like, this isn't a real person.
Yes, I totally understand. Well, thank you, Maggie, so much for pitching and sipping with us today. Guys, here's my request for you. Reach out to Maggie and thank her for all the incredible advice she just shared. This has been invaluable. And until next time, one more little mug shot, because I'm really excited about it. Thank you for joining us on the Pitchin and Sippin podcast. Hey guys, if you are enjoying the Pitchin and Sippin podcast, please do me a huge favor and leave a review wherever you are listening. If you want to connect with me to learn more about the PR Bar Inc., you can do so on Instagram at @thePRBar_Inc., or you can check out my website at theprbarinc.com. Cheers!